From a professional soccer career to becoming a driving force in the mortgage industry, Brian Covey has shown what it takes to find your competitive edge, get off the sidelines, and get in the game. Find your competitive edge with Brian Covey.
What's happening, guys? Welcome back to another edition of Finding Your Competitive Edge. So today is extra special because this is one of the guys in my life. You always talk about your circle, you talk about who's in your corner. Well, Ken Joslin actually taught me some of these things that I share with you guys. And you think about who is in your life in the last 6 months to a year. They've impacted you. They've changed who you are, and they've either taken you closer to where you want to go or further away. So today, not only are we going to break down leadership, we're going to talk about coaching and how Ken went from being a pastor to now running, I believe, one of the most impactful masterminds and communities out there. I'm personally involved in it, if that tells you anything there. In his circle and his corner of people, guys, you're going to want to know what they're doing, but more importantly, how did Ken go from what he was doing and how he's continually building his business, and something you want to catch on to. How is he building himself to become the man and that person that he's attracting people in his life, but he's becoming the person that actually do all these things that he has there. So buckle up. He's got his own podcast. He's got his book. And you guys are going to want to find out today, how has he found his competitive edge and he's using that to serve others. So my friend, dude, up, this one's awesome.
Dude, you got me crying over here, bro. I'm like, I've never cried on a podcast before. I'm like all teared up over here listening to you give me that intro.
Well, it could happen because I tell everybody this, and you share this, our text thread, and I was looking at it even this morning when you share. Typically, it's going to be something either between a great verse, something you've been reading, which starts the day right. You've worked out, you've done something inspiring. This week, you became Papa. Yeah, right? Is that Papa, the name we're going with?
Papa Ken.
Papa Ken.
I got Grandpa from a couple people, and I blocked him on my phone. I said, "You're banned forever.
You look too young. You look too young." And your health journey, people are going to want to hear about that, dude. So I cannot wait to dive into this. And
I was on the phone with Brecca yesterday for about 25 minutes on the way up here, on the way to Atlanta.
We're going to talk about some Gary Brecka today, too, because I know Gary, since he first spoke a few years ago to now, you see what's there.
Rocket ship, bro. It's crazy.
Isn't it?
It's crazy. Yeah.
So let's jump into that, because you have intentionally surrounded yourself with people in a lot of different areas. But somebody out there that's listening going, hey, Kent, why should I have these people in my life? And then how did you choose them? Like, kind of take them through the intentionality, because I look at you and go, you're very intentional about who you let in your life, who you surround and spend your time with, because we all have a choice of who we spend it. You're intentional on that. Why and how did you do that?
I would start by saying this. I'm a faith-based entrepreneur, number one. I spent half the last 30 years in full-time ministry, pastoring and planting churches. So the one thing that I've learned to do, I'm intentional on trying to listen to God. Like, I'm intentional on looking at relationships that come in my life and going, man, Brian Covey and I want to connect with this guy. You know, Randy Garn. Our text thread is me, you, Randy Garn, Gary Brecka, Vic Keller, and Brent Gove. I mean, literally, man, that's a. Are you kidding me? That's a lineup just in and of itself, and even inside that lineup, you know, I talk a lot about proximity as a cheat code. Yeah, like your relationships. When you think about what we call our core five: faith, health, relationship, business, and finances. In each of those areas in your life, if you think about, Brian, I mean, I'm 55, you're like 25, and you've got abs of an 18-year-old guy. If you think back 20 years in your life, every time you've leveled up in any of those five areas, it's always tied to a relationship. And I can look at our text thread, like literally, this is today. I don't think I actually didn't text you guys today, but we text almost literally every day. I fire it off in the morning with whatever I'm reading scripture wise. And then you're either sweaty in the gym or something else. And then here comes Randy with skiing on top of some mountain in Salt Lake City. Gary's doing some kind of cold plunge or something. Brent's on the golf course. And then Vic's flying around in his jet somewhere. Yeah. So that's
pretty much the group.
That's literally it. And it's all day long, man. We're literally, it is Proverbs 27:17, iron sharpening iron. Yeah. But even in that group, and a friend of mine asked me, she said, tell me about your guys. So that's why I actually wanted to introduce you just a minute ago. Because I've shared so much about you guys, and inside even of that group, there are different guys. Like Gary's been instrumental in my health journey. I've lost over 85 pounds. Instrumental. Randy Garn and Brent Gove. Man, if I've got something personal that's going on in my life, those are the two guys I reach out to. Yeah. If I've got some business stuff or some things I want to talk about leadership wise, I'm coming to you or I'm coming to Vic. Like everybody in there has got a role in my life. So intentional on building relationships, yes, but really trying to be sensitive and intentional on saying, okay, God, who are you bringing in my life at this moment for this season? And what's the reason that they're there for?
Yeah, and I love that answer too, because each season I think about, and I saw someone post this the other day, like, they've outgrown a coach or they've outgrown a mentor. Listen to what God is telling you of, yes, maybe you have outgrown, you need someone else. When that person comes in, if they're listening, I love the way you were intentional about bringing these people in, but if somebody's listening going, okay, Ken, like I've met somebody, I want them to be in my life more. I want more time with them. This is always a question I get. How do I get time with some of these people, right? Like, how do I even get in the room with them?
Yeah. Great leaders want something for people, not from people.
Amen.
And I think that's the number one thing. Like, again, I'll go back to being a person of faith. When you look at Jesus and how he lived his life, regardless of whether or not you believe that he is who he says he was or any of that stuff doesn't really matter. If you just follow the story of his life, he literally came to serve other people. So great leaders want something for people, not from people. Probably one of the most proud moments in my life with my oldest daughter, who just had my first grandbaby. So that's probably the most proud moment now. It took the place of the other. But from the time she was 5 years old, when she went to kindergarten, I owned my own mortgage company then, so I pretty much took the kids back and forth to school every day. I'd take her to school, and when I dropped her off, I'd look her in the eye and I'd say, hey, baby, tell me the 3 characteristics of a servant leader. And she'd say, Daddy, she'd say, servant leaders put other people's needs before their own. They do things without being asked, and they do things right the first time. I'm like, okay, baby. So she'd go into school as a kindergartner. When I came back to pick her up that afternoon, she'd hop in the car and say, okay, baby, how were you a servant leader today? And she'd look at me. She'd think for a minute, and she'd be like, okay, Daddy, it was hot outside, and we came in. I let Johnny go in front of me on the water line. Or Miss Green's trash needed to be taken out, and I just took it out, and she didn't even ask me to do it. Like teaching them how to be servant leaders. So she went to Highlands College in Birmingham for ministry training in school. It's like a leadership academy for ministry. And about the second year she was in her second year there, she had started working at a brand new Chick-fil-A close to their Greystone campus. Brand new. I mean, literally had built it, hired her and a lot of other Highlands College students. And she just kept getting promoted and promoted and promoted and promoted. Well, I get a text message from her one day, and it's a picture. And what had happened was the owner-operator went to her one day. She was like the front-end kitchen manager, like managed the drive-through and all the cashiers. And she's like 19 years old. And the owner-operator comes, he goes, how in the world do you get these people to do what you asked them to do? And she's like, it's real simple. Since I was 5 years old, my dad taught me what a servant leader did. So the picture she sent me was the area in Chick-fil-A where they slide the fries and the nuggets down.
Yeah.
And it was written in Sharpie, 3 characteristics of a servant leader. And he had her go write that down for everybody in their store. And you want to develop the right relationships. Be a leader that wants something for people, not from people, and just add value. I mean, all I did in this group we have, I mean, you think about Gary Brecka, the number one biohacker in the world. And we were talking about this off air. You talk about rocket ship, dude, it's nuts to watch. He launches a podcast, and in 24 hours, 2.4 million downloads, and takes over Andrew Huberman's number 1 spot for health and wellness podcast in the world. Like it's we on this in the back, we just laugh. We're like, bro, this is Gary doesn't even, I don't even think he realizes sometimes. I'm like, bro, do you even realize how God's using you right now? And you've got Vic. I mean, he's built companies, sold, exited a lot to Berkshire Hathaway, CEO for Warren Buffett. The mastermind we did last November, a year and a half ago, he flew from Omaha on his plane after he had dinner with Mr. Buffett at his house on Sunday afternoon.
Yeah.
And then you've got Randy Garn, who's the most connected human being I've never been around. Ernst & Young Entrepreneur of the Year, just like Vic was. Yeah. New York Times bestselling author. And he sits on the board with Tony Robbins. And he's Dean Graziosi's best friend. And he knows everybody. Brent Gove, number 1 guy at EXP, 29,000 agents in his organization. He pretty much runs everything that goes on at EXP. Who am I missing? Missing anybody? You. I mean, just watching your meteoric rise in not just even what you do at Loan Depot, or not now Revolution Mortgage, being a senior vice president and what you're doing there, watching you do. And I was talking to your girl earlier, like I watch you there. I don't know a man that does as much as you do, impacts as many leaders as you do, and still loves your family at the level you love your family and post about your family. And dude, I just brought the group together. And the relationships inside of that corner group of guys is unbelievable. And we literally can go 2 months and not talk to each other. And when we see each other in person, it's like just like we did today. We both pulled back to our Range Rovers, like side by side in the parking lot. We're bro hugging as soon as we get out, like, what's up? It's relationships are vital. If you want to accomplish and fulfill what God's put in your heart and in your life to do, you have a purpose. And if you want to fulfill that purpose, you better surround yourself with the right people.
Oh man. One, thank you, because and everybody knows this, and I share this. We won't get into it today, but you have to go through seasons of not doing it well to have people in your life to see what it can be and what's possible. And that's what that group of guys. And so anybody listening, you need that group of guys around you, or girls, right? Like,
and some people around there are like, how did you start that? I just started it.
You just started text.
Like literally, I'm like, and then then Vic came on later, and so I added Vic to the group, and then we have the group, and I'm like, okay, guys, hey, everybody knows each other, everybody's very high level leaders. Yeah. Hey guys, I'm just gonna start a group, and we're just gonna talk. And Gary will pop in from time to time. Gary pops in with his picture of The Rock when he's doing Joe Rogan's
something
podcast.
Really cool where we're like. He was like,
Gary's like, The Rock says hello. And that's when you get the Vic Keller text. He goes, that's badass. I mean, Vic even pops in on the text from time to time, right?
Yeah.
And you're just like, you're watching these guys, just start it. If you've got a group of leaders that you want to not just speak into your life, but it literally is an iron sharpening iron relationship, just start it.
That's right.
Just go to 3 or 4 guys. Hey, would you be okay if I started a text thread and us just really sharpen each other? And then pictures of, Randy in Salt Lake City and helicopter skiing or whatever you call that stuff. And all this stuff. And you're everywhere. You're like either at a soccer match or you're at Disney or you're hanging out with your family. And we're just constantly, guys, look what's going on in my life. And when it doesn't go good, we're like, hey guys, can you pray for me? This is going on.
Yeah.
Can you pray for me right now?
And those guys have given me insight on things too, because like you talk about Vic, and I always say it's like, I'll reach out to him certain things. I'll reach out to Randy for something, and everybody's strengths. I'll reach out to you for things, and I'm like, hey, of course Gary helped me with my health stuff, or I'm like, dude, thank you, saved my life on some things there. Yeah. What's cool, you may not even know this. There was a text thread that came through today, and I don't think this was by surprise, but after one of the Create conferences that you had led in Dallas last year, when I had met Stephen, and then Amberly and Rudy. Catherine, Gordon, like all these people, there's another text thread that they created because I told them they heard about this one. Yeah. They go, hey man, we're going to create our own. So for anybody out there, do not be afraid to start it. I don't think we had texted for 2 months on that one. It came up today because Amberly had a win and we were celebrating her and what she's doing. Yeah. And so you need people around you that are cheering for you, but also challenge you, because I see what they're doing. I'm always going, okay, not a comparison, but also, hey, am I showing up as the best version of Brian? Yeah. Am I adding value? Am I supporting my friends? Yeah. And what you'll find when you support other people, the abundance is there.
And when you talk about abundance, Brian, when you get in a group of guys, I always talk about community circle corner. Community is that large group you travel with. It can be a civic organization, your church. For us, it's my GSD community. We're going to be a Create in 5 weeks with about 400 or 500 people there. Faith-based entrepreneurs, just really motivated on becoming the best version of themselves. But when you start surrounding yourself with people like that, and you start getting in rooms with a community, in a circle, the 10 or 12 people you spend the most time with, and then our corner that we were talking about already this morning, you can't wake up in the bed and go, man, I don't know what I'm going to do today. You can't get in the shower and be like, man, my life's just meaningless. I just don't have any purpose or any vision or any drive. I mean, because when you look at that group, you're like, shit, I better get to work. Like, I better get going, because if I don't, man, these cats are going to leave me behind. And it is so encouraging to be around the right group of people that you see making moves, because it not only encourages you to do great things, but it also shows you what's possible. It literally shows you what's possible.
Hey guys, it's Brian here. I hope you are enjoying the show. By the way, if you're an entrepreneur or a solopreneur looking to grow your personal brand, make a bigger impact, maybe increase your leads and grow your revenue, let's help you get started today by connecting up with my friends over at the Brand Builders Group. You've heard me talk about them, but if you're new here, this is definitely the first step to get you started in turning your reputation into revenue. Head over to freebrandcall.com/Brian Covey. Again, to set up your free brand call, go to freebrandcall.com/Brian Covey. to set up a free strategy call with one of the team at Brand Builders, and they will dive into your specific goals for how you want to grow your personal brand. I can't wait to hear how it goes. Let's talk about your transition, because I think that purpose and what's possible is like, you're a pastor, then you move in and you've been a successful mortgage broker, right? So all my mortgage friends out there will love that you've done that. And now you're running a team at EXP and you've got that going. But I love you have this integrated life, and I shared some about integration today. You have this integrated life. You got the GSD community, you got the Create conferences, you're coaching people, you're doing all these things together, but yet they're integrated. I'd love for you to talk about how you found your purpose and then how you started to expand that, because to me, that's what a lot of people struggle with today is like, man, what should I be doing? It's like, what are you passionate about? What are you good at?
Yeah.
Who are the people that you can serve? Talk us through your journey.
My favorite Jim Rohn quote is speed increases focus. Doug Volsky, who's been a part of my community from day one, does about $90 million a year in sales throughout all of his auto body shops. I think he's 27 to 30. They just picked up 3 more, so probably 30 auto body shops across the Midwest. And he taught me that quote probably 3 or 4 years ago. Speed increases focus. And the problem is people don't get into action. They don't get, because they're like, I'm not sure what to do. Just take action. We learned that from Grant Cardone. Mm-hmm. Just take action, that Jim Rohn quote. So for me, it was, and I'm going to preface it with this. One of the main questions I get a lot when I get interviewed, and I've been on everybody's podcast, right? Not as good as this one, but I've been on everybody's podcast. Brad Lee, listen up, big boy. Yeah. The number one question I get is, do you miss ministry? And I'm like, man, I do more ministry now than I did when I was pastoring a church for 6 years with hundreds of people. Because now I get to impact hundreds of not just people not just faith-based people, but people that are at such a level that when I impacted Brian Covey's life, boy, that ripple effect is huge. A Vic Keller or a Brent Gove or vice versa. The influence and the ripple effect is huge. So I'm like, man, I pastor more people now than I did when I was in the church. And so that transition for me was, I started working with my coach, friend, pastor, Sean Lovejoy, who runs Courage to Lead, which is one of the top ministry coaching organizations in the world. I remember when he started it, he was pastoring. When I planted my church, I planted under Sean out of his church at Mountain Lake over in the Alpharetta Cumming area in Georgia. And he started this, and I just went to kind of work with him and kind of help him get the for-profit side off the ground. And I'm like, man, I want to do this. I walked down in a thing called 10X Boot Camp in October of 2019, and I meet this little 5'5" dude who has more energy than I do. And I'm like, bro, I don't know what you're on, but I want some of what you got. Yeah. Named Grant Cardone. And I run into Grant. I became a licensee. I just had conversations with Grant. And the number one thing, like him, hate him, whatever. The dude does not stop. Mm-hmm. He is like a force. And that's one of the things. And so when I saw and met Grant, and he looked at me, he said, why are you here? 2 reasons. Number one, I said, I want to blow the lid off my mindset of what's a lot of money. Because when I planted my church, it was hard financially, and I want to help pastors and churches train their business leaders so they can grow their businesses so they can in turn fund the kingdom. That was my whole goal. That was it. And I'll never forget, Grant looked at me, and he put his little finger in my face. He goes, dude, if you'll let me help you, I'll help you. I said, okay. And 3 months later, I started GSD, in right during COVID in 2020, and dude, it's been a rocket ship ride and you've been along for a lot of that ride.
I remember one of the first conferences you had out at Coach Burt's Lodge, and I was like, man, there's something to this. And I always tell everybody, you need to find the right group for you. And so I'd love for you to talk about how you landed on that too, because what you talk about within GSD, I think a lot of people are looking for. And I always say, if you want to be successful, make a lot of money, there's people that can teach you that.
Yeah.
If you want to be successful in all the areas of your life and truly find fulfillment, there's very few out there. So I love you talking about that, because it's a very different approach.
And I didn't start there, Brian. We didn't have the core 5 until like 2 years ago, about halfway in this 4-year journey. And I'm looking and I'm going, we're helping entrepreneurs, but really, who are we as human beings? Faith is number 1. Health is number 2. Relationships is number 3. And that's like the foundation of who you are as a human being. Yeah. And again, I've got friends that aren't Christ followers, and I'm okay with that. I'm like, because I know that if they spend enough time with me, or you, or Brent Gove, or Randy Garn, or Vic, all those dudes love Jesus. Like, if you spend enough time with us, you're going to look and go, there's got to be something to this whole Jesus thing, because you guys, you're different human beings. You're not locked in. And folks, I know I mentioned Range Rover. I don't ever talk about that. But I mentioned that earlier when we backed in. I don't care. I mean, literally, I bought that Range Rover out of a conversation with Randy and Brent when they were like, hey, dude, you need to go buy it back. I was driving a Honda Civic Sport.
I remember.
I don't even care. And they were like, go buy a car. You've got money, go get something. And I'm like, and I went and bought a car. But when you're there around those guys and you're thinking about faith, health, and relationships and around the group we're in, again, nothing wrong with nice stuff, but it doesn't drive us. It's more return on mission than it is return on investment. Mm-hmm. And so I think when we started that core 5, because again, you mentioned it, you can have a great business and you can have great finances. You can excel in both of those areas. But if your faith and your health and your relationships are out of alignment, 2 things are going to happen to your business and your finances. Either number 1, you'll have a great business and a lot of money and nobody to surround you to do life with because people don't like you.
Yeah. Because
you don't focus on the faith, health, and relationships. Or you're going to build those things, and because the foundation is so unsure, that foundation is going to fall and you're going to lose it all. Mm-hmm. And man, you want to talk about a hard fall. And I've done it. I've had friends do it. You've seen people, especially in the housing and mortgage crisis in 08, 09. I mean, that was a rough time.
Yeah.
But if you'll focus on those core 5 areas, and literally we talk about becoming 1% better every day. It's in the planner I created. You know, how can I get 1% better in those 5 areas every single day? Who can I surround myself that is going to help me get better?
I want you to jump into the health thing, because you mentioned health.
Yeah.
And I'm seeing this whole movement of people, and I just got to say, my first 13 years of corporate America, people were out drinking, they were staying out late, doing all the things. There was no mention of health.
Yeah.
I mean, it was like, put on a suit, cover up whatever, like no one talked about it. And the burnout and the people that I look and go, man, that wasn't success. And I always had this disconnect from it. Like, well, I don't want to be where my manager is. Yeah. Your health journey, I think, is going to inspire some people. And I've been following. Yeah. You showed me your picture before and after, which we will post that, because I think that is tremendously inspirational. You're one of those guys, like, Ken, I look in the morning, and I mean this, there's days where I'm like, my feelings are talking to me. And they're like, Brian, you don't have to go today. You worked out hard. Man, you've worked out 5 days this week.
And you're ripped. You're already jacked. Your team's over here. I probably would take a day off if I looked like you right now. So I'd be like, nah, I'm just going to chill.
So I'll share, our good friend Ben Newman always says this, the seduction of success, whether it's business, health, anywhere in your life, he always says, don't be seduced by success.
So good.
And for everybody,
so good.
Doesn't matter how far you've come, every day you got to show up and put the work in. So I think of a scoreboard going back to 0 every day. I've got to show up and do my work, because one, my kids are watching me. Yeah. And if my little one comes and asks me, like your daughter comes and says, hey, Dad, you go do this? Did you do this? I don't want to look at them and go.
Boy, and your kids will call you out in 2 seconds.
They will.
They'll call you out. Dad, you're online talking about how you work out every day. And you didn't work out for like 2 days in a row.
What'd you do today, Dad? Dad took a day. Should you have taken a day off? Let's talk about your journey, because it's going to inspire people. Yeah. You've lost, you're saying, over
85 pounds, 86. Yeah. So I umpired college baseball for years. Loved it. Loved the game. And I was down trying to get a D1 job in New Orleans at the SEC ACC camp with a really good friend of mine who's in the SEC and the ACC, and a lot of friends that I know. And I was down with Rusty, and I had a great camp. Everything went phenomenal. And one of the guys, SEC guy, just worked the College World Series this past year, came to me. He goes, Ken, you have a natural sense and ability on the field. Your rapport with the players and your rapport with coaches is great. Your timing, great. But, dude, you've got to lose weight. He goes, when I saw you on the field, I'm like, and then I watched you move. He's like, I couldn't believe you moved the way you move at as big as you are. So I'll never forget, I went home from that camp September of 2019, October, about the same time I met Grant. I mean, literally both of those things happened at the same time. And I go home and I get on the scales, and it was 308 or 309. And I was like, dang. And and I was like, that's terrible. And I'll never forget, I stood there, I took a picture of the scale, I took a before picture of me, I went straight to my social media and I posted it. I said, I'm going to lose 66 pounds. That was my goal. And so when I got to 60, I bumped it to 86 pounds. When I got to 80, I bumped it to 106. And it's kind of more maintaining that, but I'm literally about to get super focused. I just went to Costa Rica for RMI and got all my health stuff done, and blood work and markers and all that kind of stuff. So that kicks off in about the next 2 or 3 weeks. So, but yeah, the journey has been great. And in that journey, I mean, you see me, dude. I get hangry if I don't go to the gym now.
Like, I know that feeling.
I have to go work out because there's just something about it. And when you start eating healthy and you start working out, it's just cyclical, man. You just it's the snowball effect. The momentum builds and builds and builds. And Gary Brecka has been a huge part of the journey for me. It's like I get stuck. I call Gary. What are you doing here? What's your macros here? How many carbs you taking? I got on keto. I was stuck at about, gosh, this a couple years ago, probably 40 pounds-ish. And Gary's like, keto. And I'm like, keto? Gary's been on keto, I think, for 7 years now, like all the time. And Gary gives me a complete keto diet. I started in June at our Scottsdale, and I went all the way through the very first CREATE conference we did in 2022 in Atlanta for 6 months. And I dropped like another 35 or 40 pounds, but dude, it was just shredded.
Wow.
But it's just locked in and focused. And it goes back into, when I started the whole journey, I came up with this concept called incremental, not monumental. Small daily disciplined decisions over time always equal monumental results. Success can't escape you when you do the right things every single day. And that's it, dude. I say this a lot. You've heard me say this a million times. I'm not the best looking. I've never been the most athletic. I'm not the most talented. I'm not the most educated, but you will not outwork me. You will not get up at 4 a.m. more times than I will. Yeah. You will not show up at the gym. You will not work as hard as I do at the gym. It's almost impossible, like literally almost impossible to do that. And it's now what people see is the compound effect of 3 to 3.5 years of work showing up every single day, even when you don't feel like it. And if that doesn't sound just like Ben Newman, I don't know what does.
That's the standard over feelings.
Yeah.
But I want to break this down because something I've observed watching you is you are the most disciplined person. And when you have your planner, this to me, like I want people to hear how this has impacted, because I watch you in your planner and you always share, and I've taken things out of it. I don't do it exactly like you do. I made it work for me, but I took a page out of your playbook of writing down on Sunday night, doing my planning. I know you do this every day.
Biggest thing.
But break that down for people who are going, because I think this is where people miss out. They have good intentions. I mean, we're in February and the stats will say most people have fallen off.
84%.
But your planning, I think, is a key to success, that I watch how you do it and I watch your consistent growth, that incremental, not monumental. I think about, that planner has something to do with how you continually level up.
Yeah. Most people, their day starts when their alarm clock goes off. They wake up and they're like, what am I going to do today? 6 o'clock. Got to be at the office at 8:30 or 9 or 7, whatever time, or they sleep late because they don't really have anything planned. The most important time of your day is Sunday night before your week starts. Literally, so I have Sunday's my 5 R's. I talk about it all the time. Rest, relax, replenish, review, and refocus. Rest your body, relax your mind, replenish your spirit, review your week, and then refocus. So I'm gonna rest. I'm gonna chill. I'm going to do something that gets my brain to shut down. Movie, book, nap, whatever. Replenish. For me, it's go to church and get my worship on and just literally just be in God's presence. And then review. I'm going to review the past week and go, okay, where can I improve? Where did I win and how can I get better? And now I'm going to refocus. I'm going to take Sunday night for 25 minutes. Then I'm going to go, okay, what do I have to do this week? What does this week look like? So when I get up, I'm taking my planner, like literally my physical planner, and every appointment I have in my Google Calendar gets written in my planner for all the next 5 days. And then Monday, before I go to bed, Sunday night, Monday is already planned out. And I have a couple spots in there, but I know exactly what I'm doing before I go to bed. I know every night I know what I'm going to do the next day. And it's huge. You talking about the planner we created. On the right-hand side of my planner, it's goals, gratitude, affirmations, top 3 every single morning. I write my goals down twice a day, something I learned from Grant. And you're like, well, Ken, what do I write down? For me, I've got 2 businesses and then personal stuff. And so I write down, where do I want to be at the end of the year? So that and they'll morph and they'll change and they'll move a little bit, and that's okay. Goals, gratitude, and affirmations. How are you expressing gratitude? It's one of the things we do in our text. Dude, we constantly practicing gratitude. Erwin McManus, who's also a good friend, I heard him say something a couple months ago. He said, scientists have a study and have proven that gratitude is like the lubricant of the brain. It changes the state of your brain. Affirmations. What am I saying to myself? What am I speaking into my own life? And then what's my top 3? What are the 3 things? What are the 3 big rocks I need to move? Second half of the day, wins, 1% better, goals again. And you mentioned it just a minute ago. I have a scoreboard on the bottom of every page. How did I live my day?
Dude, I love that. And for people listening, this is one I fought, honestly, because it's not in my nature. And I was like, oh man, how do you get to that point? I'm like, let me be the first one to tell you, I fought that because being an athlete and we were just creative and free flowing. Yeah. But then I look back and go, practices were scheduled. All of the trainings were scheduled.
I believe it.
All the things around outside of the training field, watching the film, watching the tape, prepping for games. I'm like, hold on, I've been looking at this all wrong. And we started doing Sunday planning with Nicole and I. It is amazing. And your point, we are flexible through the week.
Right.
But if you're not doing that today, this is one thing I always say, you could go implement right now and it would change your life. And it's going to feel weird. It's going to feel awkward for a little bit. What advice would you give for people that aren't on a planner? They're not planning out their day and they're just coming in, like you said, they just wake up and they just, the day happens to them and they just roll with it, right?
Go to growstackdrive.com/planner. It's $29. I think we make $4 a planner. Like I don't even do it to make money. It's 60 days. Get a planner, the QR code in the front. I spend about 8 minutes on a video walking through how to use that planner. You use that thing for 60 days. If it doesn't help you, I'll give you $200 back. I'm telling you, it will change your life. Because what happens is what you focus on improves. Mm-hmm. And when you start focusing on the things, especially in the core 5, faith, health, relationship, business, and finances, and you're looking at your calendar and you're like, Ken, you came on this podcast to talk about calendar? You better believe I did. And talk about scheduling it because it's a game changer, but it's the discipline in you being able to do it. I heard Grant say this one time about writing your goals down twice a day. And he said, just say you only do 300 out of the 365 days a year. Let's say you miss a couple days, 2 or 3 days a month. And he goes, at the end of the year, and I don't remember if he asked the audience, he said, how many of you guys write your goals down once a year? Half the room. How many of you guys write your goals down maybe once or twice a month? Almost the other half of the room. Anybody write it down every week? No hands. Anybody write it down every day? Nobody. And then he said this, and I was like, oh my God, that makes complete sense. He goes, let's say Brian Covey writes his goals down once a month or twice a month. You're going to write your goals down 48 times a year. If you're writing them down twice a month, that'd be 24 times. Mm-hmm. I'm writing mine down 600 times a year. Who do you think's going to win that battle? Man, when I heard Grant say that, I was like, oh my, he's right. Yeah. Like I know I am so focused and locked in on where I want to go because every single day I'm taking time to refocus exactly what I want my energy and my day to go to.
Dude, I love that. My coach and I, we were talking about it yesterday, and every conversation comes back to, is it in alignment with your goals? Is it in alignment with your goals? And I'd love to talk to you about that because what you just shared, people miss because it is the simple, it's the incremental, not monumental piece that you shared. And for you to talk about this is the alignment, the choices you make. Because right now you got a team at EXP, right? Like you have responsibilities out of multiple businesses. You got the GSD community, you got the CREATE conferences and all that. How do you create alignment in your life so you're getting to do the things that you want, but also not get distracted? Like we see a lot of people just go off the reservation and they wonder, like, why are things not working? They're not focused on their main thing.
I would say on the distraction thing is you just have to understand that some days are going to be amazing and some days are going to suck. Yeah. And when they suck, you better have great people around you. And I've had some, dude, I had an unbelievable rough summer. And you know some of the things. I mean, it was so funny because I had like 2 catastrophic relationship fails within 60 days. And I remember I saw a video from a pastor, big time pastor, and he said the average person that happens to them 7 times in their lifetime. He goes, the average pastor happens 7 times in 1 year. Wow. And I had 2 of them within 45 or 50 days. And it was rough. You're just going to be rough. Yeah. And that's when you lean on, like, call Brent Gove. Hey, dude, can I come down to Puerto Rico and hang out for 5 days? Yeah. You call people and you get around the right people. So I think that's the number one thing. And then understanding like where you're going. Like what is every single day. You know, one of my core values is focus. How can I squeeze every ounce of potential out of every single day and every single minute and knowing exactly where you want to go?
Yeah. There's a quote Roy Vaden shares all the time. I love Roy. And he says, diluted focus will get diluted results. And I was thinking about, and I ask myself that now. It's one of those prompting of language. You talked about that being important. When my focus is diluted, I find my results are also diluted because I'm out chasing all these things. And so I'm going to jump into the CREATE conference because this is something that comes up with me all the time. People are asking, hey, Brian, one, why do you go to these conferences? I'd love for you to talk about some of that. And two, people that are looking to go, what can they expect to get out of that and yours? Because I do want to promote this because it's the one I make time for.
Yeah.
And I always say throughout the year, it's like when you go, you get excited. Yeah. And every time I leave, not only have I made new connections, I've learned something I can immediately go implement. And it's challenged me in an area that I go, I'm not playing to my best in that area. And I need to get there. So why should people invest and go to these as they're looking at their year, and how does it fit into what they're building?
Yeah. Number one, and I say this we've had, you've spoken it there, Randy Garn, Gary Brecka, Brent Gove, Brendan Bouchard,
John Maxwell is one of my favorites.
John Maxwell, Jesse Itzler, Ed Milet. I mean, Meltzer, the lineups like Dave Meltzer, Les Brown. I mean, the lineup's ridiculous of the people that we have there. But every year when we get up on Thursday night before we kick the pre-conference side off, I get up and I share, hey guys, you're going to hear some amazing people. I've got Sean Mike coming up, Alex Morton coming up this year.
Yeah.
I mean, I'm talking about killers when it comes to business, absolute killers. And I'm like, you're going to hear from some amazing people. Like literally when it comes to faith, health, relationship, business, and finances, the top people in the world are going to be on this stage. But the magic and what you invested in are the people that you're going to be sitting at that table with all weekend. Mm-hmm. Like if you leave this place and you don't walk away with 4 or 5 brand new relationships of people you don't know, you have wasted your investment. Mm-hmm. Getting a picture with Ed Milet or John Maxwell or Brendan Bouchard or Erwin McManus or any of my friends, like that's great. And you're going to, again, you can listen to them on a podcast and get almost the same information, but it's the room. Mm-hmm. It's being in the room. It's being in proximity. In the planner, bottom right-hand corner of every page, it says get in rooms with people who think bigger than you do. Because when you walk in that room and you see things that people are doing, you're like, oh, man, I'm not thinking big enough. And then you get around people and you're like, and we've created such an environment. I mean, literally it is curated in this environment. And you said something earlier about the conference. I spent 12 and a half, 13 years in full-time vocational ministry. I had one of the largest youth ministries in America around 99 to about 2001. I know how to create environments. Mm-hmm. And when you can create an environment where you can be in there and you can see guys that are doing things at the level, not just on the stage, Katino Mobley, first-round NBA draft pick, played in the NBA for 13 years. He shows up at my event. He doesn't even speak. He's just sitting. Yeah. He's sitting in the audience. He's just hanging out. When you see the people that are there and you're in the right kind of cultivated environment, Brian, you leave with, I can do this. Mm-hmm. Like, you know what? I can pull this off. You don't leave going, oh, man, that Brian Covey dude, man, he's got his abs, his arms. There's no way in the world I could ever look like that. Like, that dude's just too sexy. No. You walk out of there going, these guys make it believable. Mm-hmm. Because the authenticity is the level is so high. You walk away going, I can do this. Mm-hmm. I can do, and let's say you don't do it at the level that some of the guys do. Let's say you make it 75 or 80%. Man, you're still going to be in the top 2 or 3% of people in the country.
Yeah. Yeah. And I love the energy. You mentioned that because when I go in, I'm always paying attention to people, their energy and what's there. And to your point, the tables that you're sitting at, the dinners, the networking, all the things that happen, you start to realize how do really successful people that are successful in all areas. I'm not just talking about they're successful in money. Like that's what usually people go to. Mm-hmm. No, these people are successful in lots of areas of their life. How do they show up to these events? And what I found, people come in and they either kind of hold back or they engage in, and I love those people running around, hugging people, shaking hands, get to know people. Hey, let's trade contact. Yeah. Out of those, what I've shared with everybody is there's going to be one relationship, maybe more if you're really good at this, that you leave, and potentially it's not why you're there, but you end up doing something special with them down the road. And you don't know when you're going to be able to serve them. Mm-hmm. I've had people call me, Ken, that I never expected, going, hey, can I talk to you about this? Or my kid, this is one of my favorite ones. My kid's playing sports right now. Like, Brian, you're uniquely equipped to help with that. Well, that's not exactly why I showed up, but guess what? I will sign up for that every day. Right. And so for people that are thinking about coming, we got CREATE conference coming up in March. Why should people invest in themselves? Because this is where people get hung up, I see. Yeah. It's like, oh man, that money, why should they invest in themselves?
Listen, every time, I said it earlier at the beginning of the podcast, every time you go to the next level, it's always done through a relationship. Every time. Mm-hmm. When you put yourself, it happened in my life. I was making 125, 130 grand a year doing real estate. Dude, I was working 10 hours a week. I was barely working, umpiring college baseball, refereeing college basketball. At that time, probably 75, 80 pounds overweight. Mm-hmm. And I run into this guy on the internet, on the Instagram, this little bitty dude. And he's like energy. I'm like, who is this Grant Cardone dude? And I'm like, hop on this free webinar it's like the second or third Saturday in November. And I hop on this webinar on Saturday. It's supposed to be 90 minutes on mentorship. 2 hours later, dude hadn't even come up for air, bro. He hasn't even stopped, Brian. He's going. And I'm like, I'm sitting there on my island in my kitchen, my MacBook Pro, sitting there. I've got my credit card out. I said, dude, I have no idea what you're selling, but whatever it is, I'm buying whatever this guy's got. I need more of this dude in my life. It was a $997 mentorship. It was the first one he ever did. This is 4 years ago. So I buy into the mentorship. That was on Saturday. Monday, I'm working on the largest commercial deal in real estate ever. It was a $3 million deal. It was for a pastor friend of mine. Their church, it's an African church. They were buying a church in Atlanta. $3 million deal. Monday afternoon, the appraisal comes in at $2.625 million. So it was a $3 million purchase. Yep, that's exactly right. Everybody knows real estate. You're like, well, dude, you're screwed. Yeah, you're screwed. And so to make matters worse, the seller is a 72-year-old Chinese guy who doesn't speak English, and he's got no representation. This is an unlisted property we're trying to buy. So I'm having to go through his 20-year-old grad student daughter. She's our negotiator. And so I'm like, dude, we're done. This is like a $78,750 commission for me. Gone. I hop on that Monday night on the mentorship call with Grant, and they pitched this 10X boot camp thing in Miami in 4 days for like another $4,000 or something like that. I'm sitting in the chair, Brian, and I had a decision to make. I said, what's the worst that can happen? I spend $4,000 and I go down there and nothing happens and I learn and I go to Miami for 3 days? Mm-hmm. Okay. I'll never forget, I picked the phone. You want to talk about serendipity, which is my favorite chick flick, by the way. I picked the phone up and I call. I'm going to do it. I'm in. I call. And Jack Lombard, who's the number one sales guy for Grant now, Contract Jack they call him, was the same kid. He had just started in sales. The same guy who answered the call when I did the 997 on Saturday, same guy who answered the phone when I called down I said, I'm coming. Hook me up. I want a ticket. It was like another $4 or $5 grand. I think I spent $6,000 with Grant in a week. And I walk down there. I get to Miami. I meet Grant in in the hallway for the licensee deal. The next hour, we're in a Q&A session. There's 20 or 30 of us. And I've got this deal. I walk in. I grab the mic as soon as I walk in the room. I'm waiting on everybody. Q&A with Grant. I pitch my deal. Grant goes, buy the building. I was like, what does that mean? Like, I've done a lot of real estate. It's not like this is my first. Yeah. And he goes, Ken, if you overpay for the building, find a way to buy the building. If you overpay for it now, when they sell the building, somebody will overpay for it then. I said, okay. Still didn't make sense. We get done at the end of the day, 5 o'clock, I call Pastor Steve Unichukwu. I say, hey, Pastor Steve, this is Ken. I'm down here in Miami at this thing called 10X Boot Camp with this guy named Grant Cardone. Oh, I love Grant Cardone. I'm like, he goes, so we're talking. He goes, I said, well, he gave me one-on-one advice. What'd he tell you? So I told him. He goes, okay, what are you going to do? I said, I'm going to fly home Monday. I'm going to go straight to the building. We're going to meet with that Chinese guy and his daughter. We're going to negotiate a seller held second. Same bank term, 5-year balloon. It's exactly what we did. Wednesday, I closed that deal. I made $78,750. I made another $52,000 the rest of literally, I made $129,000 the last 6 weeks of the year in 2019. Literally doubled my income. And you're like, well, Ken, would that have happened had you not went down there? No way. Mm-mm. There's no way I would have went. I literally figured out a way to be able to get that deal done just because I was in the room with somebody like Grant.
Wow.
And it was a game changer for me. So why do you, and I love how you said just a minute ago, you didn't say spend money on a ticket. You said invest in yourself. The reason people don't invest in themselves, Brian, is because they don't think they really can pull it off. And you get in a room like that, I promise you, if you come to Create Conference and you leave in 2.5 days and you don't think you're capable of doing more than you could before you came, I'll give you your money back when you take it. I'm telling you, it will change. It is a transformative experience. Yeah. It's not just a conference. We've got part of Maverick City's band coming in, Ashley, who just toured. So we'll do cover tunes. We'll do worship sets throughout the 2.5 days. But if you leave that 2.5 days and you don't think, man, I can do more than I could when I walked in here. I'm telling you, it'll be a game changer for you.
Yeah. You'd have to be not present physically, mentally, spiritually, emotionally, anything to leave there and not have something like that. And I love that you shared that, because this is where people miss out. Is I've had more problems solved by reaching out to people I've met at these conferences, because they've been through things I haven't been through yet.
100%.
Or a different perspective. And I go, you don't realize the person you can call outside your industry. I had someone recently within our group. It was, working through this mortgage coaching of like, how do we bring in the best and the best people? I'm like, I was going at it all wrong, like traditional ways. I'm watching what everybody else is doing. They're like, well, what if you just did this and this? I'm like, that's okay.
It's one idea.
Yeah, and you're like, wow, that one idea could change everything.
Just the same thing Grant did that day.
Yeah.
He said, go buy the building, find a way to buy the building. I'm like, now I'm thinking different, because I wasn't thinking that way when I came down. I'm thinking from a traditional mortgage broker and a real estate broker. I'm thinking, we're screwed. Yeah. I just lost $78,750. Yeah. And then when he said that, I'm like, okay. So I started to think outside the box on how can I get this deal done? And we got it done. Like literally in 3 or 4 days, I close the deal and we make $78,750.
And now you think differently, which I love this question. So in the last year, what has Ken maybe changed a belief or thought process around that's helped you go to that next level? Maybe a limiting belief or something you said, you know what, I used to believe this. Now I believe this. And something's changed for you.
Well, that's a great question. I think most of us, Brian, are born with, all of us are born with 2 fears, falling and loud noises. Mm-hmm. That's it. So all the other fears that we have and we develop in life are all learned, which means we can unlearn them. I think the number one thing is just in the journey, like, understanding to enjoy the journey. I talk about this all the time, but still, even this year, maybe even at a deeper level, enjoying the journey and not just trying to get to a destination, I think is the one. But I think as you start to enjoy the journey, and it goes back to the 1% better every day, you start really looking at yourself in the mirror differently. And you're like, man, I love the man that I'm becoming. I love how I love people. I love how I love my friends. I love how my grandbaby just got here, and I'm stopping on the way home to see my grandbaby this afternoon. In Birmingham. I'm like, I'm super excited about who God has me becoming as a man. Like, that's probably the number one thing. It's like, my heart's different. My mind is different. The relationships I have are different. And you said a word in the very, very beginning, which is a word I love, and that's fulfillment. Mm-hmm. I don't care how many zeros you have in your bank account. I don't care how many commas you have. I know a lot of wealthy people that are miserable. Yeah. And I know a lot of people that are wealthy that have a great level of fulfillment, and they are not miserable. Dude, they lay their head down the pillow at night and they're like, this is how you live a day. Yeah. This is how, when I left the hospital the other day and I held my grandbaby for the first time, I'm like, are you kidding me? I mean, like, God, can it get any better than the way it is right now? Yeah. And that's fulfillment.
And I think you look for that. And so I want to just affirm that with you, because the way you love on people, it often comes back, right? And so I think if you want to show up as someone, start taking action. And you said that earlier. Yeah. If you want to create gratitude in your life, start showing gratitude to people. And it's hard to be grateful. I think Erwin even said this once, like, it's hard to be grateful over here and then mad at the same time. Like,
dude, he's so good.
They don't go together.
He's so, listen, if you don't follow Erwin McManus, go Instagram right now. Yeah. He's the number one. He's my favorite communicator for 25 years. He's the best, but he's 100% right on that. The fulfillment component, Brian, is because you live a life focused on return on mission and not return on investment. And again, my favorite Zig Ziglar quote, if I help enough people get what they want, eventually I'm going to get what I want. So you can have all the things that you want. But if you just serve people and live by, literally, I live by a code that great leaders want something for people, not from people. Yeah. I don't want anything from you. That's how Vic and I got connected the way we did. Dude, I don't want anything from you. Yeah. I don't need anything from you. Just come and get in a relationship and be in the group and the community and the corner and the circle just be a part.
Yeah.
And it's a game changer, dude.
Dude, I love the way you show up, and you inspire me.
I appreciate it, man.
And our crew, man.
Yeah.
Shout out to all of them
Yeah.
because hopefully they'll listen to this and what they do. And I would challenge you, like, find your own crew. Like, build that around with wherever you are today. Build that, and if you don't have it, be the one to set it up. And like you said, you just initiated text thread, added Vic in later, and you never know where that'll go. And I look to that sometimes. To your point, you're like, dude, it's been a rough day or two or a week or whatever you're going through, and you're like, you look forward to those texts coming in, and you're inspired by people, whether you really realize it or not. And so people that pay attention to their circle in their corner, they're winning.
You know, one of the let me quantify it with this. I was down in Costa Rica at the beginning of January doing some stem cell treatment with RMI. They're my largest sponsor. And about 2 weeks after that, well, actually, while I was there, right before I went, Dana, who's like their CFO or CGO or something, she's C-suite, they had Rudy Rickstein's come down and do a whole thing for them.
Yeah.
And he met them through me.
Yeah.
Do you know how many people that I know that I'm watching doing things together and they got connected through me? Do you know how fulfilling that is?
Yeah.
To watch that take place and to go, man, I'll never forget when I first gave my life to Christ. My pastor told me, he goes, Ken, you're like Andrew, one of the 12 disciples. You're a connector. Andrew was constantly bringing people, introducing people to Jesus. And when you are a connector and you look, dude, there's not a day goes by when I don't talk to somebody that I meet that's new that I go, oh, you need to know Brian Covey.
Yeah.
You need to know Randy Garn. Or you need to know Gary Brecka. You need to know. And I'm just, dude, I am constantly connecting people. And then when you see God do stuff out of that, listen, man, I lay my head down on the pillow and I'm like, yes.
Yeah.
And I'm grateful, man. God, thank you for giving me the opportunity to be able to connect people.
I love it. You want more of it?
Yeah.
You just had me thinking too.
Yeah.
My middle name's Andrew.
Oh,
I thought
I didn't
about
know
that.
that.
One of the things that I set out a couple years ago, and you inspired part of this, was to become a better connector, become a great connector, just introduce people in my life. I'm like, God, you're bringing in these amazing people. Yeah. Where can I facilitate a connection that's going to help them, and realize it doesn't all have to come through me.
Yeah.
But if I connect people,
yeah.
When you said that, I was like, hold on, Andrew.
Yeah.
So
you're a connector.
Yeah.
Galatians, you reap what you sow, man. I'm telling you, if you reap it with a pure heart, and you reap it with, I mean, you just said it just a minute ago. Stephen, Amberly, Rudy, all those guys were on a text thread.
Yeah.
The majority of those guys met. Well, actually, I met those guys at an event that Amberly did that I spoke at with Stephen, with Rudy, and those guys. So I mean, like, now we're off. Henry and Taryn are actually coming to Create to speak. I met them at Amberly's event.
Yeah.
Like, so it's just when you get in the circles of the people that we get to do life with, man, there is number one, there's no egos. There's none. There's no. I've had a couple people on stage that have egos. They don't ever get back. They don't come back.
They find their way out.
You better believe they do, quick. And because even with our group of guys, we like, and there's guys we've had, and it's funny. I can't even share the conversations live, but they're like, they'll be like, really, we're not having that dude back. And you're like, yep, you're right.
Yeah, you nailed that one. Good. Okay.
Yeah. So it's just when you find your tribe and you find people that have the same DNA and the same like-mindedness, and you can do life like we do, even on a daily basis together, even just through a text thread of just building and solidifying and challenging each other to become the best men that we can become, so that we can become the best husbands and the best fathers. And then the business stuff it just organically flows right out of all that.
Yeah, that's how it works. Oh, my friend, I know we could talk for hours. I told her, I go,
we've got lunch, but I'm hungry.
I was like, I'm going to keep this. We're going to stay on point.
Yeah.
But I just want to, what you're doing, and we're going to promote all this out there. If anybody's listening, you got to show up to the conference.
Yeah.
You got to check out what Ken's doing in his community, GSD community, the people that we've met through there, just even the ones that I just stay in touch with on a text from now. You need people in your life to help you become your best. And I've often found, you said one relationship, that one person could change it. So if you're listening today and you're like, hey, I don't know what to do, we're going to put the links in. Reach out, make a connection. You never know where it'll go. Just like you invested with Grant, that one thing led to another thing, which led to what you're doing. Yeah. And I love how God is really taking all of your experience. And I always look at that as like, man, where do people come from? Like, what's their DNA of this and how? And then you see how they're uniquely qualified and equipped to go out and serve. And so you're doing that.
One more story. We finished our very first Mastermind in May of, it'd be 2 years, 22. May of 22 on the lake on Lake Lanier in Northeast Georgia, where I grew up. And we had 22 or 23 of us. Gary Breck was there. Randy Garn was there. Brent Gove was there. Sean Lovejoy had just released his book with Baker Publishing on killer teams. Sean's been my pastor and coach and mentor for 10 years at that, probably 14 years at that time. We do the weekend. Sean stayed for a day and a half, talked about killer teams. The next week, I'm back in Birmingham. He lives literally right around the corner from me. We go do lunch at Chipotle, and he said, Ken, he said, what I watched you do in that room with that level of business, but Dr. Rob Kelly was there. I mean, we had some studs in that room. And he goes, what I watched you do in that room with that level of business leaders, he goes, I've watched God prepare you for 14 years through all your ministry, through all your leadership training, through all the things you've done. He prepared you to do what you did in that house. I've never seen anybody do what you did in that house. And he said, I've watched God prepare you for 14 years for that moment. Wow. And so I would say, don't neglect the process.
Yeah.
Wherever you're at right now, I mean, literally, it's the incremental, not monumental. Just keep doing what you know to do. Get around the right people, learn, become 1% better every single day. And I'm telling you, one day, you're literally going to walk into it and be like, this is what this is all about.
Yeah. I love that you share your stories. And even I talk about the 3 principles with your daughter and like the servant leadership and all this stuff. People are going to want to listen to this back and like take notes, go implement what's there. Yeah. And guys, this has been a phenomenal episode. I'm going to tell you, you're going to want to rewind it back. Grab your pen and paper if you didn't already. And as always, I love to hear, and I know Ken will love to hear, what has stood out to you? What impacted your life? What challenged you? What are you going to do with this new information? Because it's great that we shared all this with you. You've heard what Ken has done. You've heard some of the stories we shared. What matters now is what action are you going to take as a result of hearing this and knowing that God has called you for more? That little kind of nudge in your heart, you're thinking, man, could it be for me? Could it be? I found that is typically the nudge, and we're just afraid to go take the next action. That is going to be the difference between where you are and you want to go. So people are counting on you. Guys, make sure, leave a review. Let us know how we impacted you. We're going to put the links in for Ken's Create conference coming up, the GSD Mastermind, all of the stuff there. And as always, guys, go out there and do something great. Be a blessing to somebody else. And make sure you tune in to the next episode. We'll catch you on the next one. See ya.